Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are here again after 3 weeks of NFL football. We are starting to see some slight clarity in NFL offenses, but only a select few of us true degenerates can decipher these trends and figure out what it means when it comes to big time decision making. Pay close attention, as this time of the year is when you can take advantage of your idiot league mates. As always, Dan will go over his surprises around the league. Then we'll give a rundown on our week 3 player picks. Unfortunately, Dan, I beat you once again. You guys are going to get used to that. So that's all I got. And then we'll go over the new talk in town. Some massive week 3 breakout performances. Shout out Chuba Hubbard, as well as some underperformers and some new buy and sell trade targets that we have for you. Following that, we'll give you guys our week 4 player picks. And I personally guarantee that these will all be hits. Like, no questions out. They're all massive hits. So just start them and win your weeks. That's about all I got, though, guys. So, as always, enjoy the video and good luck in all of your fantasy endeavors, unless you're in one of our leagues, then, because luck ain't going to save you. Peace.
In audio.
Three, two, one, action. Welcome back to the DGen Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Dan Schmader. With me tonight is my co-host, Dylan. I was going to say Butt Pirate Reigns.
Not again. I can't run it back.
Dylan Reigns tonight.
That's okay.
Yeah, he earned. He had a big fantasy weekend. He doesn't deserve that. Welcome back. Please like and subscribe. And we're going to get into a little week 4, but first we have to go over week 3, of course.
Of course.
We've got our top 10 surprises. Our hits and misses last week's on our predictions, underperformers, breakouts, trades. We got a lot to go over tonight.
Yeah.
But let's get right into it, Dill. There's been a lot of heartache in fantasy so far.
So much heartache.
But also some pretty fun little surprises. Number 1 tonight is interesting because it shouldn't be a surprise, but the last few weeks it's been rough. But Kyren Williams blowing up against the Niners despite injuries to the offensive line and a decimated wide receiver core. Is he still an elite fantasy option at the RB position?
I think so. I mean, as long as he's healthy, you can't really top him. He's just in that tier of guys that get so much usage that that's almost untouchable. I mean, that's kind of like where Saquon's at as well now. So
I know. Thank God. Yeah, Blake Corum hype, absolutely BS.
Yeah.
Ronnie Rivers is running too, and Kyron's just still playing 90% of snaps.
Yeah.
Oh, another year for the Rams. Number 2, same game. You know I had to do this at some point. Juwan Jennings.
Oh.
Performance against the Rams. It's like one of the all-time greatest performances for a Niners receiver. Yeah. Is he the wide receiver 1 while Debo's away? Do you think he has a bigger role to play than the $30 million man, Brandon Ayuk?
I don't think so. I think this is like total smoke. Obviously, Juwan had a great game. Ayuk still had 10 targets. He just didn't convert most of them. So Juwan had 12, so slightly more, but Juwan's huge. I mean, he's 6'5", big guy, easy target. He can move. So I think he's just kind of more comfy for Brock right now. I don't think he's like consistently. I don't think he's quite as talented as Ayuk. Obviously, I think it's great for him. I mean, Niners fans, Simon, love him. I mean, he's a great blocker, but I wouldn't think that's the norm going forward.
But would you start him while Debo's away?
It depends. If I'm like choosing between a couple of flex people, I might start him, but I'm not excited to start him, kind of thing.
Bro,
I think he's
I agree with that take.
I think he's more similar kind of to like the Rashid Shaheed kind of guys. The like boomer bust guys. Obviously, he had, I think, like 9 catches, but I don't think he's as consistent as some other guys.
Yeah, I'm with that. What a game, though.
Yeah,
what a game.
What a wild game. If you had the balls to start him, I mean, I know quite a few people that did, so not crazy. But
I know. Yeah, I saw that in our leagues as well. Some people had the guts to put him in, and good for them because it paid off with like a 44-point game. Let's bring us over to the Lions game. Gibbs and Monty, that even split, or even more so leaning towards Monty remains. And I wouldn't say this is a surprise, but Monty at his ADP in redraft, he's looking like he might be the steal of the draft right now. He had 23 carries. He's involved a little bit in the passing game. And Gibbs did score, but it was off of like a hook and ladder.
yeah.
So their outputs could have looked a lot different.
Yeah, I mean, Monty looks great so far through a few games. He's my RB1 in a league, and I'm just loving it. I will say though, like Gibbs looks so good on the field. Um, he
Yeah,
just looks
he's
so
David too.
electric. That hook and ladder. I saw a thing. I think he's the first player since the '80s to score a touchdown, a receiving touchdown, without getting a catch. Just because it's kind of fun fact there, because he didn't get a
Yeah,
catch on the
he
hook and
worked a lot.
ladder, but yeah, I think I love having both of them. If you have either of them, they're just like must starts at this point. I wouldn't think
Yeah.
twice of it. Um,
Yeah, and I get it. Gibbs owners are a little frustrated because they had to pick him significantly higher than Monty.
yeah,
But it was pretty obvious that like last year worked for them, and this year's gonna be more of the same. And Monty is not old
yeah,
whatsoever, so hopefully they keep it rolling. Jets game. It just pains me that we even have to talk about the Jets, but
yeah.
they're relevant again for sure. Jets receiving breakdown. Garrett Wilson. It was like Tyler Conklin, Alan Lazard, and then I think maybe one of the running backs like Brees, and then Garrett Wilson. Are you concerned if you are a Garrett Wilson owner?
Not really. I think what Rogers said after the game is like him just trying to get on the same page as Garrett Wilson. Obviously, Rogers is like one of those cerebral quarterbacks who's just thinking about everything all the time. And Garrett Wilson has had complete dog shit quarterbacks his whole career. So I don't think he's like instantly going to pick up on that. Obviously, he's great, like athlete profile, all that stuff. But I think they're just going to get better and better as the year goes on. So
Yeah, I'm down for that. And Rodgers also is just 3 games back, so and their team gets better
yeah,
every week.
yeah. I mean, I
Number
think
5.
Wilson still did
Oh, go
lead the
ahead.
team in targets as well. So it's like he's not suffering, obviously, but th-
No, he got nine targets on the week, which was their team high. And I also don't think you can expect Tyler Conklin to get in that many yards like he normally did.
yeah,
Number 5 brings us over to C.J. Stroud. Him and Mahomes are becoming oddly similar. I just saw something that in Mahomes' last 17 games, only in 15% of those games did he crack 20 points. Um, and CJ so far this year has yet to score more than 18. He's had one top 10 finish, and I believe that was in week 1. Are you concerned about CJ Stroud not finding the same level of success as last year?
I'm not worried at all. I think this is kind of a whole NFL problem as well, not just these guys. I mean, they're easy to pick
Yeah.
because they are like such high sought after players. They were drafted as like QB1, QB3 kind of thing. But I mean, this is like a whole nother topic we could get into, but it's just the whole how defenses are changing. The NFL always works in a cycle of like what teams do to combat the current trends. So right now, everyone knows two high safeties kind of thing, what teams are doing, and they're just taking away the passing game a lot more than they have in the past few years. So teams are utilizing the run game a lot more, which is chewing
Yeah.
up more clock. There's just not as many deep ball opportunities. They can still happen, but it's just not the same way as it used to be. Is like you're not getting a lot of like Nico Collins deep post routes that are converting for 45 yards every week. So I just wouldn't worry
Yeah.
anything about it at all. Also, like next week they're playing the Jags. I think CJ Stroud's just gonna absolutely murder them. So
Yeah, cross that 300-yard threshold for the first time. Yeah, that is interesting. That has had quite an effect on like the value of running backs this year.
yeah,
Where in those middle rounds, we see running backs that we used to call a dead zone that are now, being David Montgomery is one of them, Aaron Jones. These guys have value.
Yeah, I would expect this trend to continue throughout this season, and I don't think we've hit the peak of it yet. Like, I think the running game is just really going to take over at some point later this year, next year. Well, you'll see like a big shift. So it's going to be interesting to watch. And then they're going to have to start loading boxes more often, and then it's going to switch back. It's kind of how it always goes in the league. Little ebb and
Yeah.
flow.
Yeah. Could have cool fantasy implications next year for
Yeah.
sure. Like in terms of drafting wise. Let's bring us over to the Eagles game. Another frustrating game for the Eagles. They barely beat the Saints. Jalen Hurts this year has had 4 picks, 3 fumbles, and he currently has no receivers with Devontae Smith potentially missing the game. A.J. Brown still expected to sit, and a very good run scheme with Saquon. If you watched any of the Eagles game on Sunday, Saquon's just opportunity share is out of this world this year.
It's nuts.
With following up on what you were saying about the improved run game in the NFL, is this what we should expect from the Eagles? At least until a big dog like A.J. Brown gets back.
Yeah, I think this is entirely on A.J. Brown here. I think it's once he comes back, he really changes the game for that team. I mean, he's just such a dynamic receiver. And having Jalen Hurts, who struggled in the league to start, then get A.J. Brown and getting used to having A.J. Brown, now not having him again, it's a little bit of a it's probably good for him long term, but right now it's just terrible for the offense as a whole. So just some growing pains, I think.
But those of you that drafted Jalen Hurts, you have no choice.
Yeah, that's
but
the
to
thing
keep
is
him in
like you
there.
can't bench him. So
Yeah, you have no choice, which is kind of the dark side of drafting a top 5 quarterback. But number 7, this one was probably the biggest shocker in the whole week outside of Juwan. Middle tier tight end blow up. So I'm talking Dallas Goedert, I'm talking Cole Kmet.
ugh.
Should we expect more of this? Cole Kmet prior to this game was kind of being out snapped and had less volume than his fellow tight end on the Bears, Gerald Everett.
Yeah.
So this was kind of a surprise. Goddard, I feel like he's probably okay to play with confidence. I mean, until we see A.J. Brown come back. What about Cole Kmet?
I think both of these games, especially the Bears game, were so sloppy. Keenan's out. He missed the game. I don't know what his ankle's looking like if he's going to be back this week, but I think that's a big part of it is Cole getting more targets with Keenan out. And Caleb did drop back over 50 times this game. So that's like a big part of so much volume. So obviously great for Cole Kmet, but I wouldn't be expecting this going forward at all.
Yeah, and because Cole Kmet's a good player, but he was being faded consistently throughout the fantasy community because of scheme and system, and that was a pretty big surprise. The Packers are the team we're talking about next. Number 8, Malik Willis and Emmanuel Wilson. Both had very good games. Malik played very well, and Emmanuel had more carries than Josh Jacobs, which is pretty strange. Are these guys streaming options going forward? Like, say, in a Superflex QB league, or a dynasty league where you're starting more players? Are they able to be started?
I mean, if you're getting into like a super deep format, I can see it, but I mean, Malik Willis is just he's not exciting. He looks great out there for what his career has been, but I wouldn't feel comfortable starting him. Same with Emmanuel Wilson. He looked great, but I think it's when you have these like injury backup quarterbacks, you just kind of try whatever to get something to work. And Emmanuel Wilson
Why
looked
Jacobs?
great. What?
What's up? Why didn't Jacobs what was going on there?
I don't know. He just didn't get a whole lot of involvement. I don't know the reason why. It was just kind of the way things were.
Yeah. You're right. And last week we saw this happen with the Vikings where Ty Chandler had pretty much an equal share as Aaron Jones and did a little bit more with it. And this kind of like raised the Chandler hype a little bit and probably got him pulled off waivers by a bunch of teams. That could be the same exact situation here, where just they went with a hot hand, and next week it could be all about Jacobs again.
Yeah.
The consistency this year has like been really frustrating to some extent. Where the week previous, Jacobs got absolutely fed, and then the following week, his backup is getting carries. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't really respond too much about it.
No.
Um, Another surprise, but not surprise. Amari Cooper has his big game.
Oh.
Is this something that we can expect consistently, or is this just the same old Cooper where he doesn't do anything for 4 games, blows up? You have to start him again for 3 weeks until you get frustrated and sit him again. Then he blows up again.
Well, if you remember correctly, I called this, so big proud of that one there. I don't think I mean, obviously he had 2 touchdowns. Nobody's gonna score 2 touchdowns every week. That's crazy. But I think it is a little more in line what we could see going forward. I think he's still averaging 8 targets a game right now. So I think if he can get 4 to 6 catches a week, like 60, 70 yards, that's kind of more so where he's going to be like low teens points. And then if he gets a touchdown, he becomes a great play. And if he doesn't, he's not. But it's just that Browns offense just is fucking trash. That's about it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
there's nothing. I
Well,
mean,
that's super competitive.
Deshaun's looked awful. So,
Deshaun's terrible,
but
terrible. But even Deshaun can be a adequate fantasy starter. So
yeah,
I think you got to go for it compared to other flex options, or even wide receiver twos. Cooper has the high ceiling that can win you a week potentially.
yeah,
And last but certainly not least, and I know I keep saying this, this was also a huge surprise this week. Although some people called it, Andy Dalton going out to the starting job in Carolina and the offense absolutely clicking. Can you play Chuba and Deontay Johnson in your flex going forward? It was that. Is this a sign of things to come? I'm kind of leaning towards yes.
I think it's a sign, but I think this was like beyond his ceiling kind of thing. I don't
Yeah,
think this is like by anything's the norms. I mean, he's the only QB this season to have 300 plus passing yards and 3 TDs in a game. The
that's crazy.
the only one. So, um, I mean, Dalton's still good. I think it's great for Deontay Johnson. I don't really know about Chuba. I think Chuba looked great, but is what's his role like going forward? Miles Sanders still there. We got a couple more weeks, then we'll see with Jonathan Brooks. But I'd feel comfortable starting Deontay. Not so much Chuba, but if I like need to, I don't mind throwing him in there. Um, Maybe if you have like a streaming option at running back because you punted running back, like I have Charbonnet starting in a league. I might pick up Chuba in that league and play him instead now. So we'll kind of see. But
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Hopefully they have a couple more good weeks, and it might give you a little opportunity to move Chuba along to one of your idiot league mates who's not paying attention to
exactly.
Jonathan Brooks's injury timeline. All right, so that's the top 10 of the week. Um, Again, a lot of surprises early on that are now becoming kind of consistent
Yeah.
trends, that I didn't even touch on. Let's get into our picks last week and how not bad, how good or bad we did.
Yeah. I mean, overall, not too horrible with our picks last week, but not great. We both went around roughly 50%. We'll tally it up as we get towards the end. My
Yeah,
two,
that's pretty legit,
yeah,
honestly.
pretty legit. Especially, I took a couple risks here. So my 2 QB picks, both Dak and Caleb, hit their projections. Kind of the game scripts went pretty much exactly as I expected. I said the Bears game was going to be a shit show. Caleb's going to get a lot of volume. He got 50 plus passes. So
Unreal.
yeah. Dak, they had to kind of come back towards the end, which slow start, but it really vamped up his fantasy numbers. So we like to see that. So
I missed on both of my quarterbacks. Derek Carr fucking killed me, you
yeah,
bastard. But that's what Carr does.
Yeah.
And then Jared Goff also played like pretty terribly. It's all about the run game there, as we talked about
Yeah.
before. So that was a miss and a miss, and I will never pick Derek Carr ever again as my breakout pick.
Until next week.
Depends who he plays.
Yeah. All right. And then
Falcons, I think.
moving over to the running back room, I picked Brian Robinson. He had an all right game, but still a miss. He didn't hit his projection. He got the touchdown. Not a whole lot of involvement in the passing game. Had like sub 50 yards rushing. So,
Yeah, pretty inefficient in his carries.
and then my second RB pick was it was going to be Kareem Hunt if he got picked up, but I also put it in with Carson Steele. So Carson Steele actually had a pretty good game filling in. He had, I think, 12 rushes for 70 yards with one catch out of the backfield. So he put up
Okay.
8.4 points. I mean, it's not a hit by any means, but I still liked what I saw from him. So
Yeah, and his projection at 9.5 might have been a smidge high, but hey, that's a really great game from him. Super efficient. If you score a touchdown, which Steele in that role will get some goal line carries, so you almost got it. My RB start of the week was Jordan Mason. I like the matchup a lot. The Rams just really showed up,
yeah,
and it was a Jawan Jennings game. So missed Mason on that. His projection was pretty high.
yeah,
He put up 10 points or so, but did not score. And then David Montgomery was my RB flex option, although I'm sure a ton of people are starting him as an RB2,
um,
and he was a full hit. He looks so good. Like, I know this is kind of a cliche thing to say, but best shape of his life.
yeah, yeah. He's a wagon out there in Detroit. Um,
Dude.
And then moving over to wide receiver, like we mentioned, I had Amari Cooper, absolute stud game, two TDs. And then my other pick was Khalil Shakir. He got the touchdown. He had quite a few targets. He is still perfect 15 for 15, as you said last night on targets for receptions. So we like to see that. He had 6 catches, good amount of yards. So great game from him.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been on the Shakir wagon since his playoff game last year, but especially since I drafted him
Yeah.
in our dynasty league. And to be honest, I don't really see him as actually being like, an 1,100, 1,200 yard guy. But I do see him making a career for himself between like the 750, 1,000 year. And that makes him pretty useful in a pinch in fantasy.
Yeah.
My wide receiver picks was none other than Christopher Olave. Or is it Christian Olave? Whatever. Chris
Yeah.
Olave.
No idea.
He probably doesn't go by either.
Yeah.
He had a big game for the first time this year, scored a touchdown, 86 yards, in what was otherwise a really bad Derek Carr game. But also worth noting, Shaheed got completely cut out. But Olave looked the part. Like, he looked
Yeah.
athletic, he looked strong, making really athletic plays. Really like what I saw from him. Calvin Ridley was my second receiver. That was a miss. It was kind of a D-hop game. I'm not giving up on Calvin yet, but that team is kind of a mess. Like, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. Will Levis just looks lost sometimes, man.
Yeah, he does. So I like these picks. Yeah, another thing of note was on the Ridley pick is D Hop had the most production, but I think he only saw 30% of the snaps on that offense this week. So it was just like in the
Damn.
few plays he was in, he just got all the balls. So
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna fade Ridley, but
yeah,
prior to the start of the season, I was expecting more
Yeah.
from Will Levis, and so far, you can't really pick these guys with confidence until
no, but you can't give up on Ridley. He's your guy. You're locked in the
he is my guy.
him and T Higgins,
I
your boys.
I already gave up on Higgs.
Yeah, that's okay. And then this week for tight end, I picked Kittle. Obviously, we found out later in the week he wasn't going to play because of the injury. So, and then I picked Dalton Schultz as my fill-in desperate play who just put up nothing. So that was just
Yeah.
I'm just kind of tired of picking these tight end dart throws. I will
I
say,
know, dude.
I will say in like some of my leagues, I've just been ripping Zach Ertz past 2 weeks, just kind of getting
Yeah.
sneaky like 10, 12, 13 points. So he's a good play.
Which is really the last 5 years, if you didn't have Kelsey, that's all you could hope
Yeah,
for.
I'm
It's like,
ecstatic about him getting like 12 points.
yeah,
That's
give
great.
me 8 to 10.
Yeah.
Um, I hit on both. I hit on Dalton Kincaid, who I really dislike.
Yeah.
Um, but I thought like it was going to be his week, and honestly, he hit for a tight end, but he caught 4 passes for 41 yards and an early score, and then did nothing. But it was a blowout, so maybe we could have expected more. And then Mike Gesicki for the Bengals also did like an Ertz type of game,
Yeah.
but he's gross, and so I will take what I get from Gesicki all day long. And he did get involved in the garbage time, like 2 minute scramble down the field, which was pretty positive to see. Get some of those longer balls.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so I was 4-8, 4 for 8, not bad. Got to improve on the quarterback piece.
Yeah. I was around 4 for 7. I'm not going to include the Kittle pick. It's just, yeah, I mean, he didn't play. You should have known he wasn't playing by the time game time came around. I kind of want to give myself a half point for Carson Steele, but I'm not going to do it. We're going to keep honest here. So, but technically,
Are we using ESPN projections?
I don't know. I just kind of went off whatever. I mean, they're both dog shit.
ESPN projects it a lot higher than Sleeper sometimes.
Yeah, they do. So we'll see. I mean, it's just kind of how they look, right? Like Carson Steele actually looked good out there. At least I thought so. So
He did, but his pregame outfit was like, dude, I don't want anything to do with this guy. I just don't want anything to do with this guy.
Dude, they're just
have to remember that he's probably also like 23 years old. Too.
Yeah.
You can take a little bit more style chances at 23.
Yeah, you can get away with it, especially when you own an alligator as a pet.
Yeah. Go wherever you want.
Yeah.
Carson.
All right, and then just touching on some
Underperformers
this week.
Yeah.
My pick was Mike Evans. This kind of came to no surprise, really. Going up against the Broncos, thinking Pat Surtain was going to cover him. So we kind of were low on him beforehand. And the Bucs offense just looked fucking terrible across the board. So I don't know if I'm not so much worried about Mike Evans, but I'm kind of worried that this is what the Bucs are going to look like more so than the first 2 weeks.
And that is a problem.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I'm like, don't fade Mike Evans. Because I think I picked him last week as an underperformer strictly because of Surtain.
Yeah.
And I really wasn't sure if he'd be on Evans, but he was. But yeah, the whole Bucs team the last 2 weeks has not looked great, and that has implications.
Yeah.
But who has looked great is Bucky.
Yes, he has.
My underperformers that I want to touch on are just all the tight ends, dude, that you paid high draft cap on. This is McBride, who is now concussed. Awesome. This is Sam Laporta, Mark Andrews, and Travis Kelce. I will leave Kincaid off just because he helped win me a week, and I will leave Kittle off because he's hurt. What are you doing with these guys? Like, I can't imagine anyone will give you anything for Andrews. Are you going to just continue to start a Mark Andrews week in and week out, even though he has shown us absolutely nothing besides like one measly, 5 for 40 type of game?
I think we've entered the category of you're crazy if you start Mark Andrews after this last week. He was the third tight end this week on the team. He had the third most snaps on the team behind Isaiah Likely, and then I think it's Peter Kolar, something like that. I don't know who he is, but he was on the field for 20 plays out of 63, like a 30% snap share. So I just don't think you can play him at all until like something changes. The rest of the guys you kind of just have. I don't think you drop him yet, but it is hard to roster multiple tight ends, I will say. So hopefully if you do have him, you have someone else that you can at least play already. So
Yeah, dude, that's rough. I mean, but he is almost 30, and the guy has taken a fucking beating the last 6 years in the league. So
Yeah.
this could actually be fire. Um,
Yeah.
Sam Laporta, you just got to keep and pray. I think he was drafted so high. He's a big part of that offense last year. Um, and McBride, got to do the same thing.
Yeah, you can't really
But
pivot off of most of them. I think if somebody wants to try and like buy low or something in your league and overpays, it wouldn't be a bad option to look into. But out of the bunch, I
yeah,
mean, McBride probably looks the best. Same with Kittle, though. Kittle still looks good. Obviously, he missed this one game. Hopefully, he's back next week. But he's had two pretty, I think he put up 8 points and then 20 points. So I'm happy with him.
unreal.
But I don't
All
think,
right, happy times, happy times. Week 3 breakouts. Are we sticking with these guys, or is this a flash in the pan?
yeah. I picked Deontay Johnson and Jawan Jennings. Uh, One of these guys I'm sticking with. The other one's a flash in the pan for me. Um, Sticking with Deontay, Jawan, I'm kind of out on. It's just I can't imagine that Jawan just descends into a regular role in this 49ers offense, unfortunately. I mean, maybe Debo and Kittle are still out and somehow he gets there, but I can't imagine it's the thing. It just feels like too uncharacteristic for him to be this good now.
Deontay, however,
Yeah.
he looked like the guy that we wanted him to be in the summertime.
Yeah, with Bryce, just a lot of short targets
Yep.
across the middle, just pure volume, and then getting a couple loose and just getting big points off of that. So,
Yep. All right. My picks, Chuba, we already talked about, and I'm kind of on the same train as Deontay, but my plan for Chuba is to start him the next week or two. I think the offense is moving. Chuba finished really well last year, and that was kind of what attracted me to him late in the drafts.
yeah,
Um, and I don't think most people will trade you for Chuba, where you get something in return because everyone knows Jonathan Brooks is coming back. So I think you can just kind of play him, and then I have a feeling the Brooks comeback is going to take a little bit more time
yeah,
than we think. Trey Tucker is my receiver breakout on the Raiders. Uh, maybe he should be rostered, but I think that was a flash in the pan.
yeah.
Brock didn't have a great game. That should happen. Who knows what Devontae Adams is up to? If there's any change with Devontae, though, Tucker is an interesting option. If some targets open up in that
Yeah.
receiving room.
I think, yeah, a lot of people were saying that post about Antonio Pierce was Devontae, but I saw this other video that it's not Devontae. Um, there's a quarterback on the team. I think it's John Jones, and there was like clips of him just giving up every single play. So
Yeah,
if I,
that,
yeah,
that makes a lot more sense because when someone says like business decisions, it's normally someone like refusing to tackle.
yeah,
You know, if they're like, we're getting beat up, I'm just going to refuse to make
yeah,
a tackle.
and that's exactly what it was. And knowing Antonio Pierce, like hard hitting linebacker, kind of like a thug a little bit. So I'm sure that shit doesn't fly with him.
Oh
Like
yeah,
you're
yeah,
not
he's a guy.
denying Devontae, who's just one of the best in the league talent wise. So
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so if that's the case, then and maybe don't even waste a waiver pickup on Trey
yeah,
unless you're in a really deep league or you're in like a very large league.
yep. And then a couple trade targets or trade talks in general this week. Last week we told you to sell Rashid Shaheed, J.K. Dobbins, Ramondre Stevenson, and Najee Harris.
Should have.
Yeah,
No big deal.
they all had ass weeks. I mean, Najee's was all right, but it's nothing to be super excited about. But the first three are just, you can't sell them for anything now. You missed your window, unfortunately. Nobody's going to trade for Shaheed. Dobbins, you might be able to get a little bit, but Ramondre is done as well. So, yeah, that's what you got to pay attention to these windows because you sometimes think you have a lottery ticket and then it just is so worse, and now they're basically roster cloggers.
Yep.
So my buy pick of the week is Jalen Waddle. I think a lot of people are turning tides on this Dolphins team. They do look terrible, which I agree with. They look so bad. Um, but people didn't necessarily invest as much draft capital in Waddle as they did Tyreek. So I think they're a little bit more likely to panic and move off of them because I think you're not happy starting Waddle right now. So if you could pivot someone, even like Deontay Johnson for Jalen Waddle, I'd do it, kind of thing. So
Yeah, Tua's coming back eventually, right?
yeah, you
So
got to assume that. So I'm trying to get
yep,
Waddle in some of my leagues.
I like
And
it.
and then my other pick of the week is I'm selling DK Metcalf. Um,
Nice.
I think it's hard. Gino has some nice deep balls. This deep ball to DK, it worked out. It wasn't very pretty. It's underthrown by a good amount. But I just it's DK's still ranked pretty high, and I don't think it's going to be a consistent factor for the whole season. So it's just he's going to be too boomer bust. Gino's going to have these games where he looks great, and he's going to have these games where he looks fucking awful. So DK's kind of always been like a low end wide receiver 2, high end wide
Yep.
receiver 3 upside, but his draft capital has always been much higher. So I'm getting out from under
Yeah,
him.
if you can trade him for like a middle wide receiver 2 or even like a higher end wide receiver 2,
Yeah.
that's a come up. And he's certainly viewed by some as that, as like the wide receiver 17 or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, my buy is Bucky Irving. He may be too expensive though, because I think he's like kind of on a hype train right now.
Yeah.
And it related to that, my sell is Rashad White.
Yeah.
I think I want to run for the hills from Rashad White, dude. Their offense has not been good.
Yeah.
He's had plenty of games to prove himself and use the opportunity, use the volume, and he's just so inefficient. And when he is not involved in the passing game, he's going to kill you. So I would try to send some trades out there, see what they're being valued at. Rashad, you still might be able to get something good if people are just looking at like their snap share because it's still in Rashad's favor. He played a good defense, blah blah blah. I think Rashad is worth like trying to pivot off of while you still can. My other sell is Jordan Mason. I'd be curious to see what you can nab for him right now. The CMC is coming back. At least I think he is, and he's going to dominate as he always has. But there's some news going around that he's looking into alternative medicine.
Yeah, I mean he's out in Germany right now. So
yeah, and I don't know the validity of that. I think it's true, and people might see that as like, oh my god, he's in a bad way right now if he's like flying all the way across the world to go see a specialist in Germany. And if that's the case, you might be able to get something pretty good for Jordan Mason.
Yeah. You know what they say about the German scientists, though, working with the blonde hair, blue eyed guys? Maybe he comes back.
He just is
new max capacity.
Yeah, he's just Captain America when he gets back.
So,
oh my god.
Yeah, I like both those picks. So
yeah, and Mason, the window is closing.
Yeah,
like
sure.
I know he's been amazing. It's really fun hitting on a just a dart throw that you paid nothing for, but
yeah, it's screaming closing right now. It's like the last chance to get anything, probably, unless more news comes out down the road. But you can't bank on that.
True. And if you sell them and it does, then I'm sorry, but you got to play. It's more realistic. All right, you want to get into some week 4 predictions?
Yes, I do. Let's get these going.
All righty. Quarterback. And I know this seems like a gimme.
Yeah.
We said no gimmies, but Patrick Mahomes is not a top 10.
It's okay. I went with some gimmies too this week.
Mahomes against the Chargers. This will finally be his first top 10 performance in 8 games, stemming back to last season. Big divisional matchup. I think it's going to be hopefully a game where both teams can get some touchdowns rolling. My desperation QB play is I want to see more Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
He's playing against his old team, the Bengals, and their defense did not look good last night.
No, I did not.
I'm rolling out old Andy, Red
Yeah.
Rifle.
I like it. I like it. I think the game script of the Chiefs games will depend a lot on Herbert playing. I think he's going to be okay in
True.
play, but we'll see. I almost wanted to roll Andy Dalton out as my stud lock quarterback of the week, but I was like, I had to talk myself back. I was like, we can't get that reckless. So very similar to your pick. Though. I'm going CJ Stroud. I think it's just enough of the talk on CJ Stroud. They're playing the Jags. I think they're going to like light them the fuck up, and it'll be a little bit of a statement game from CJ. Him and Nico are just going to explode. And then my flex play is this is disgusting. I never thought this would happen. Is Danny Dimes?
Oh, I mean, he has fantasy value some weeks, so I get it. I get it.
I mean, he outscored Mahomes last week.
Oh yeah.
So
Thanks to Malik Neighbors.
Yeah,
he was still there.
Yeah.
week.
So I mean, that's the main draw behind it. The Giants are taking on the Cowboys this Thursday night, so it's going to be a short week. Ravens had that game that lasted quite a while. It was like a fight down to the end. I imagine they're just going to be a little sluggish this week. And all Danny Dimes needs to do is throw the ball in the general vicinity of Malik Neighbors, and he's going to get some decent points. So I'm not excited for Danny Dimes, but I think this could be a week you could play him again. So
I like it. I agree. I like the Neighbors take. And he's always had a little bit of some running ability.
yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. Going on to running backs again. I'm gonna pick on the Cincinnati Bengals defense and going Chuba. We've talked a lot about Chuba tonight, and it probably will be the last week we do.
Yeah.
Play him against the Bengals, soft ass run defense. Zach Moss and Chase Brown just got after them last night. Both were super efficient and successful in the passing game.
What do you mean? They're on the Bengals, you idiot.
No, yes, they are. Who did the Bengals play last night?
The
The Commanders.
Robinson and Eckler.
Yeah. The Commanders, I'm not too concerned about. I want to see them in a shootout.
Yeah.
And I think Red Rifle and Chuba can do that one more time.
Yeah.
What was the score of the Panthers game this past week? It was kind of a blowout, right?
Yeah, it was like 30 plus two. Did they get an extra touchdown at the end there? Like 14 maybe? It was like
Yeah, so
it was like 30.
maybe Chuba got a lot of garbage time.
Yeah.
Yards at the end.
It was 36-22. So
yeah, it was okay. So they were probably playing like a pretty straight game script most of that.
Yeah, Miles Sanders got like a bogus touchdown towards the end of the game. So
oh, he vultured.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going Chuba against the Bengals. Brian Robinson, who I love, did not have a great game on the ground, and Eckler before he got hurt did not either. But if that game can be one of the few high scoring games of the week, I think Hubbard is going to be a decent play. My second RB I'm picking, who we said to sell last week, is Najee Harris against the Colts. The Colts actually have like a middle of the pack defense. So I'm not like super thrilled about the matchup per se, but Warren, I believe, has a knee injury and is likely not going to play. And I think with Warren out, and despite increased Cordell Patterson usage, which we kind of knew that was coming when he got signed by the team, because Artie Smith just cannot help himself. Despite Patterson, I still think Najee will see the snaps he needs to have an impactful game. He put up like 13 points last week in PPR.
Yeah.
And he did that from sheer volume. So if we can get him a little bit more involved in passing him, I think he could come off, a similar week, 14, 15, 16 points, maybe a touchdown.
Yeah.
Which would really catapult him.
Yeah, I think if Warren gets hurt, Najee's like fine to be just grinder games, getting like 70 to 80 yards, a couple catches, maybe a touchdown. So it really depends on the availability of the team for him.
Yeah.
My first RB pick this week is Tony Pollard. He just had a terrible game, getting 6 points. But lucky for him, he's playing the Dolphins this week, and that means the Dolphins are going to be on defense for most of the game. So
Yep.
I think that's about it that you need to know. Charbonnet just played against them on the Seahawks. He put up a 25-point game. I think this will be some good confidence for Will Levis, hopefully. But I just love Pollard here. And then my second pick this week, I know we are a little bit down on the team, but fuck it, I'm rolling out Bucky Irving this week.
Yes.
So they're playing the Eagles too. So it's kind of a big matchup. Who've been kind of shaky at D though. So I mean, Bucky's probably projected like something like 10 points. I don't know. I didn't look, but if he gets a little increase from his previous role, I could see some magic happening. He scored 11 and a half points last week in PPR. So he's a good change of pace guy. So we'll see. I'm just bringing him out starting now. So
I'm with that. I'm with that pick. I mean, and this is like coach talk, so you don't know how true it is, but Bowles came out,
yeah,
said he's gonna have an increased role, and it's rational because Rashad's been inefficient for a year and a half.
yeah,
I like that, and I like it against the Eagles too. The Eagles' defense is shaky.
yeah.
Their run defense can show up from time to time, but
I
most importantly, the game script will be hopefully like really tight back to back, and it won't get out of hand in
yeah.
either direction.
I think Baker too. I kind of like how emotional Baker is as a player. So like after his like getting his ass whooped this week, I think he takes that like very personal and like brings like a kind of nice vibe to the locker room of like going forward this week. So hopefully they can kind of harness that energy. Um, and then Bucky turns into RB1. That's the game plan. So
I think it's possible.
yeah.
It's possible. He looks great. Wide receiver picks. I'm gonna go Darnell Mooney against the Saints. And I saw who you had picked, so I'm pretty sure we were kind of just on a similar wavelength here. The Saints defense is actually looks kind of good, but my feelings with Mooney is like Drake London's a pretty good like big athlete, but Mooney is like more of Kirk's style where
Yeah.
London's not going to be like a man beater where Mooney can get space. And I feel like Kirk at this point in his recovery is more comfortable with like a speedy guy who can get open all over the field.
Yep.
And I think he will, I'm not going to promise like 20-point game, but I have a feeling he can get like back to where he was this past week, 60, 70, 85 yards. Receiver number 2 is I'm stealing your boy. I'm going Khalil Shakir.
That's okay.
Against the Ravens. Yeah, I'm going Khalil, which you know is going to be a miss after this week, but
that's okay.
It's playing the Ravens. The Bills are just an interesting team, man. Like last night, they went up so fast and so furious that I didn't really need any of their guys to continue on the amazing first half they had. But hopefully against the Ravens, it's a little bit more tight.
Yeah,
back and forth.
Yeah. I think Ravens are the worst pass defense in the league right now in terms of yards per game. So I like that a lot for Shakir, how that looks.
Be a key on game.
Opposite of Darnell Mooney, my wide receiver lock this week is Drake London. Kind of gross as well, but I mean, he's seen more volume every game so far this year, increasing. So he had 9 targets last week. I just think it's going to take a little bit of time, which isn't surprising for this offense to get clicking. Saints defense has looked okay in some games, but they still are top 10 in most passing yards allowed. So, yeah, Drake London, especially if you can get the touchdown here, I think I like playing him this week. And then my other pick is going to be Deontay Johnson against that Bengals team. Bengals just got scorched by Jaden Daniels. So I don't think there's too much to think about this for now. It seems like the Bengals are kind of turning into what we thought the preseason like Patriots or Panthers were going to be, of just play whoever's playing the Bengals now.
Yeah.
It's a wild timeline.
The Bengals on offense did look pretty good last night. Like Joey B had a good game
Joey B had a
finally,
great
but yeah,
game. He had like 300
they're
yards,
making
80% completion, 3 touchdowns. So,
yep, crushed it, which was good to see.
yeah.
But yeah, their defenses looked horrible, and yeah, Thielen is out. Is he on the IR now?
Yeah, he is. So,
Yeah, I wonder if we're ever going to see any legged action.
yeah, I think he's just going to take us some time.
Yeah,
He was a slow
yeah,
developer
we
in
don't take too much
college.
time. Legged.
Yeah, he's slow develop in college, so I would imagine it's
Yeah.
kind of similar, unfortunately.
All right, for the last one, I don't even like going over this position,
No.
although they were two of my hits last week. Uh, tight end. I'm gonna roll Tyler Conklin against the Broncos, I guess. If I have to pick somebody,
Yep.
I don't expect him to have the same type of game he had last week, but I think he will absolutely get you what you need, which is not a goose egg from a tight end. He's also playing the Broncos, who are an absolute dumpster fire. So I like Conklin, and
Yep.
him and Raj seem to have a little bit of a connection.
Yeah.
I'll also take a slice of Cole Kmet
Yeah.
on the side. He had 11 targets in that game, which, like you said, Caleb threw the shit out of the ball. And it was a sloppy, sloppy game. But it's one of the few things that have like been working for them. So I'm hoping they kind of incorporate him a little bit more into the game. And like we said in the beginning of the show, Kmet's actually like a good tight end. You
Yeah.
know, last season he finished well. He didn't finish very high in like the standings. But that was more about usage. I trust his talent.
Yep.
Hoping that this game is going to be a shootout against the LA Rams.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just picking tight ends right now just sucks. It's more fun to just pick like the waiver wire guys who are just kind of streaking there. Obviously, if you have fucking
Yeah.
Brock Bowers, you have Brock Bowers, you have Sam Laporta, you have Sam Laporta. So, um,
Yep.
my higher pick was just Jake Ferguson. Obviously, he's already owned in every league, but he just had a great week last week. Quite a lot of targets, looking like a staple for Dak. So I think he might have like top 5 upside for the rest of the year. So he's just a great play. And then my flex pick is Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz has looked pretty consistent. He's like a borderline top 10
It's
tight
the
end.
same thing as Conklin.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
gonna get that 8 to 12 points, and you'll be happy with him. So,
That's it.
yeah,
That's it. And I like the Fergie pick.
Yeah.
I think we were all on the same page with Jake Ferguson prior to the draft. That he was like the tight end 9, and I feel like that was quite a steal.
yeah,
And then push came to shove. I never waited for him. I think in every league I took kind of a more premium tight end, which seemed to make sense in past years. But this year, it's like
just absolute.
it was a total waste of a fifth, sixth
Dude.
round pick,
Yeah,
depending on your league. So I like Fergie a lot. He just started the year off with an injury.
yeah.
And CD, I mean, what's going on with CD?
I don't know,
He had a
man.
slow start last year, but I'm getting impatient.
Yeah, it is hard. It's these guys who should have that league winning upside. He still does, obviously, but he just looks lost out there. He had the fumble this week. Not a whole lot of volume either. So, I mean, Richard Sherman was hating on him. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, the Sherm hate was ridiculous. I liked Scary Terry, but if you're going to include Scary Terry in the 1A premium guys and then leave
yeah,
CD out, like, dude, get a hold of yourself, man.
yeah. So we'll see.
He's trying to start waves.
But they have the short week this week, playing the Giants Thursday. So I don't know how that game's going to go. I feel like the Cowboys have to start clicking, but maybe it really is like maybe Dak was never that good. Maybe he just got carried by his O line. Like, that's another thought.
Dak had a good week, and he's like top 3 or 4 in yards in the league. It's
Yeah,
just not,
but I mean, like, NFL wise, not fantasy wise. Like, Dak's,
Aaron Rodgers said he was.
yeah, but maybe it's just because he had like the best O line for every year of his career until now. So,
Yeah, that's true. And they're missing some pieces. Like their run game doesn't look that great.
yeah,
Dak is spreading the ball out to like Turpin, Jalen Tolbert, Ferguson. So
Brandon Cook.
I don't know. Brandon Cooks. Yeah. So we'll see. Last year it took them all the way to the bye.
Yeah.
Which was like middle of the season to really
Yeah.
like click for CD. But like you said, also it could be the trend this year and lower passing yards. And fortunately, they don't have a running back that's going to be like, okay, we'll just switch over to a run scheme.
Yeah.
But I like Ferguson a lot. I think that's a nice little pick.
Yeah, I do too. I like Dak too. That's like not what I actually believe that he sucks, but that's kind of what some of the talk is.
Going into week 4 and like every week we're still getting absolutely stymied by various situations like this. So it's bound to happen. I mean, we can't forget what the beginning of last year was like too. Same things going on. But that's our week 3 review and our week 4 predictions. Good luck, everyone, in your fantasy leagues this week. If you started the week off or the season off 0-3, it's far from over.
Yeah.
It is far from over.
There is hope.
So just stick to it. Work the waiver wire.
Yeah.
Just find Zamir White in there. And
oh God, maybe not him.
Win some week.
Maybe Alexander Madison. That's what you need.
Yeah, find this year's Zamir White.
Yeah.
This year's Zamir White. We may not even know who he is yet.
Yeah.
So stay optimistic, my friends and fellow degenerates, and we will see you next week. Please make sure to like and subscribe this video. Leave us a comment. Cousin AJ, I'm talking to you.
Yes, sir.
See you next week.
See you guys.